Okay, so have you ever been through a negotiation where you just felt, have you ever heard the phrase run through the wringer? You feel tired, worn out, or sometimes you just want it to be over with. And so you just want it to be over with, and the challenge with just wanting something to be over with is sometimes you give in and you give what you don't want to give, and then later you're unhappy. And so you become dissatisfied or you feel alienated. So going back to the example of salary negotiation, there are absolutely times when we might take a job even though we're not 100% happy with the salary. The thing to think about if you're in that situation is, well, will I be able to do this job and feel good about it, or am I going to get cranky? And then, it's a different answer for each of us. But the reason sometimes that negotiations are, pardon the expression, I'll say, they're soul-sucking, they take our energy away, a lot of times that is because of how it happens. And it's because as a person, you perhaps feel like you weren't treated with respect, you don't feel good about what happens. Because no matter what you are negotiating, you're negotiating with people, even with the advent of robots coming someday. You're negotiating with people. Negotiations can be very personal. How could it not be personal? Because, again, we're negotiating with people, right? And so when the negotiation's over, what happens to those people? What happens to you? What happens to those relationships? What happens to those relationships? So I have an example. I have someone that I worked with years ago. And, the risk sometimes with people is they become my stories, right? That's great when it's a story of something good. This person is unfortunately not a story where I'm using this person as a good example. So if I say a name, it's going to be a fake name, just so you know. Here's the deal. There was this man. His job was to negotiate contracts for our department. So we were an IT department, and we were a fairly large one. So we had somebody who negotiated our vendor contracts. And the part of negotiation where he excelled was at getting the absolute lowest price all the time. The part where he did not excel was this whole relationship thing. In fact, if he were listening right now, he'd be disgusted with me. In fact, he wouldn't listen because it would really bother him tremendously that I would even be mentioning the fact that there are people involved, because in his mind it was a battle, and the person he was negotiating with was the enemy.